Hi, I'd like to welcome you to Inputs Outputs on Demand, Keycode Media's series giving you short technical tutorials for production, post, and the audiovisual industries. I'm your host, Jeff Sengpiel, Chief Technologist here at Keycode Media. Our partners at LucidLink have been turning heads with their cloud NAS product, allowing for productions to quickly collaborate using shared projects, media, and files. Their system operates similar to consumer file hosting services. Think Google Drive, Dropbox, except it's focused more on the challenges media teams face when collaborating, like sharing high-res footage quickly over the cloud, sharing project files, remote accessing of large files, like VFX or motion graphics files from anywhere. The system is extremely easy to use, computer and edit system agnostic, and we're seeing many of our customers adopting quickly. Today, we're going to be joined by LucidLink's media workflow and cloud technologist, Richie Murray, all the way in Nashville, Tennessee. He'll give us the details on how LucidLink is helping our production and media entertainment customers. Before we get into the interview, quick reminder to reach out to Keycode Media if any of this is very interesting to you. Our engineering team will hook your team up with an optimal LucidLink setup that will work today and expand well into the future. Hey there, Richie. Thanks for joining us all the way from Nashville. What are we going to learn about today?
Well, Jeff, thanks for having us. We're going to be talking about LucidLink and our capability to make content accessible worldwide immediately, straight from the cloud. The very first thing that needs to happen when you're using LucidLink on any client, whether you're Mac, PC, or Linux, we need to install the LucidLink client. Once the LucidLink client is installed, we connect to a particular file space. That file space has been set up previously by an administrative user when they set up an account. This particular file space happens to be connected to AWS, which is hosted in Northern California. Even though I'm in Nashville, other folks across the United States and even across the world can connect to that same file space and gain access. Part of what I wanted to show is a few of the administrative capabilities. I'm literally logged in as root or the administrative user, and I'm going to open the control panel. Once the control panel's open, you'll be able to see that I can change settings relative to my client's connectivity. I happen to be running a Mac. LucidLink mounts as a local volume on my Mac, and I can choose the path. I am using the default 5 gigs of cache. However, LucidLink can have as little as 100 megabytes of cache, but as large as 10 terabytes of cache. And we'll talk more about caching later. The cache, because the drive data set can be so large, we have the ability to move that cache location to an external drive. I don't have an external drive on this computer, and I'm running just a 2015 MacBook Pro, but with Comcast Business Internet, but it's still going to be plenty of performance to do even editing work that we'll show a little bit later. I do have the ability to limit the upload and download rates relative to my connection, because LucidLink can take your entire internet bandwidth. And the reason it can and the way that it does is we have multiple parallel connections, meaning that the data is being written down into blocks. The files are broken down into blocks. Those blocks are pushed through the cache and into the object store. And we're doing this on my particular machine at the default of 64 parallel processes for both up and download speeds. In order to share, for LucidLink to be a shareable asset, we need to be able to set up users. I've set up a user called Keycode. And that user, I'm going to add a share to a particular path that's in my directory structure. And I'm going to give Keycode read and write access. If I needed to give them other access to other folders, I can easily do that just by typing in the path name and saying read-only access. We have the ability to create groups, which will ease the configuration requirements as far as similar types of users. And then I can also look backwards at shares and see exactly what other users have access to the directory structures. And I can see that there are 2 users that have access to this media assets folder. If I wanted to get rid of that other user, it's very easy. That directory structure has just disappeared off of their desktop. LucidLink does also, from an administrative component, allow you to connect into Azure AD and Okta. Those configurations will bring in your usernames and passwords, and those users would show up here, and then you can add them to groups. And then lastly, we have Snapshots. Snapshots are managed by the admin user, but are mountable by any user that has a login capability. So you simply mount the snapshot and interact and copy the file over in case something bad had happened. The snapshots are very important. They're immutable, and they are set up based off of a retention period. So you can have up to 7 years of snapshots, and it's a very low overhead for both processing and for storage. We do have a concept of global defaults for this settings, and one of the main points it's used for is to have a common mount point across Mac, Windows, and Linux, which keeps us from having to do unnecessary relinking between computer systems. So that's a quick overview of the LucidLink control panel, and you're seeing this as the root administrative user, but even a standard user will see settings and snapshots.
The concept of the blocks, it's almost like they're pixels within a single frame, and that's how you guys are breaking that down. And you said something about a storage controller. I'm assuming files need to move through your system to be able to be set up this way, as you know, instead of the typical 1 block per file configuration that cloud storage usually uses.
That's exactly right. So most people, when they're talking about object storage, they mean 1 file to 1 object, and the API calls, or the calls to move media in and out of block, are relatively small. The workflow is basically get, put, and delete. So what LucidLink is doing that's different, because of the LucidLink client, we must use a LucidLink client in order to write the data. So when we write the data, we break the file down into blocks as it's being written, either being through Finder or Windows Explorer or some sort of copy or a file save process. We break those files down, we encrypt them, we compress them, and we push them through our disk cache on into the object store. And by default, it's 256K blocks. It is a configurable block size, but think of LucidLink as a way to write blocks instead of files to an object store. And the benefit of the object store is that obviously it's, in many cases, infinitely scalable, both from a capacity standpoint and from a connectivity standpoint, because every client has the ability to see the file structure because of our metadata coordination service. And the blocks are stored in the object store, and there's no limit to how much data you can put there, and there's no limit to how many people can be connected to that data at the same time. Another cool thing is, as soon as the block lands in the object store, it's available to any other LucidLink client that's connected to the same file space with the appropriate permissions.
Very cool. And it sounds like the technology itself makes it secure, and then you're encrypting it on top of it. So it's almost like it's a double encryption.
It really is. On the off chance someone was able to gain access to the bucket that holds the blocks, those blocks would mean nothing without the metadata controller layer. And then each one of those blocks are compressed and encrypted at rest and in flight.
So for folks that have thought, oh, I can just mount my S3 bucket on my desktop and make this work, this is a lot more technology and a lot more thought behind the process than just simply trying to mount an AWS volume.
It is. We're not an accessibility tool to Object Store. We are a file system that writes blocks and writes the data structure to Object Store. In my opinion, we're using commodity, some of the least expensive, most scalable cloud storage out there, but we're doing it in a unique way.
All right, Richie. So you're in Nashville. I'm in Burbank, California on Wi-Fi. Don't tell the IT people. And the data, I think my bucket's up in San Jose. So let's take a look and see how this is all going to behave in real time.
So the primary way that we're able to collaborate together at such distance with media content is that both of us are connected to the same file space. You can go up to the LucidLink icon and verify that we are connected to lucidlink.keycodemedia. It happens to be hosted by IBM in their Northern California data center. And so both of us can see exactly the same data set. Now, if you can go into the Nashville folder, I'm going to drag and drop a file in there. It's about 360 megs. And this particular file is an MP4. And my file is finished copying as far as the operating system is concerned, but I'm still uploading the blocks. That means you're going to have accessibility. One, you're seeing that the file is growing in size, and you're going to have access to the blocks up to the point of the files that have been, or the blocks that have been uploaded.
Which looks like it's still cruising at about 82 megs, and I'm beginning to play the head of the file.
On my end, I still lack about 230 megabytes to be completely finished on a 360 meg file.
Yep. So if I move too far forward, it's not going to play, but as long as I get back where I still have the box, then it works. These look like, now I want to see these.
So right now I have about 120 megabytes left of this file to upload. And it's not so much that every file that we're going to work on in LucidLink necessarily has to be in transit. It's just showing that the fact that if you've got an appropriate codec and wrapper, and we have accessibility to the same file space with the appropriate permissions, we can interact on the same file at the same time, whether it's growing, whether it's closed. We could be working on an ingesting file at the same time. And of course, it's just you and I right now, but there's no reason why it couldn't be 100 other people on here at the same time.
So as far as the ingest workflow goes, what kind of tools will work on an ingest piece, and how is that pushed into LucidLink at the outset or the beginning of ingest?
Sure, there's a couple of ways, and there are a number of tools. One thing about LucidLink is we look like a local drive to every host. So when you install a LucidLink client, by definition, we need to be on a host that we can install the application on. Once that is determined, we show up as a mount point, a drive letter, or a volume as far as the different host operating systems. And then from there, it is literally how fast what's my IO of the LucidLink cache drive, and what is my upload speed. The limiting factor primarily in getting data ingested or introduced into a LucidLink volume is the upload speed, which, as you know, is not always in parity to the download speeds.
Yeah, exactly. I've got 300 megs down at home and maybe 5 to 10 up, because I don't live in a web hosting environment.
Well, I have a gig down and 50 meg up. But it hovers around different levels. And so the cache acts as a buffer, literally, for the blocks before it's written to the local disk into that cache location, because we understand that it would be nice if the application, the host, operating system, Finder or Explorer, or a file save could write completely at disk speed, and then the blocks trickle out relative to our upload speeds, which are limited primarily by internet.
Which makes sense. And that also kind of opens door for a camera to cloud workflow.
Very, very much so. And people many times will ask, well, what bit rates can I work with? Because LucidLink can break down basically any file, any bit rate, any wrapper, any codec. It doesn't matter. Our limiting factor is the upload speed. So in some cases, proxy is a good way to overcome just the size limitations of people's uploads. So you could ingest a high bit rate and a proxy at the same time. The proxy saving directly to the LucidLink. If your upload speed is fast enough, again, not a LucidLink factor, but your internet upload provider factor, you could use high bit rate and proxy at the same time, multiple channels.
So in a workflow where you're out in the field shooting, it is possible then to you create proxy, possibly in camera. The proxy gets uploaded to LucidLink right away. And then the large amount of data that's coming off of the camera cards is then collected and possibly uploaded from an upload point, a data house somewhere in the local area.
Something that's more appropriate for data transfer. And it's a great idea. And one thing too, what we've got some customers that are doing is they are using LucidLink as a way to transfer high bitrate data and a repository. Because we are running many processes at the same time, we fill the bandwidth without having to utilize other technologies that have been proven in the industry to speed up data transfer. But we can do it without that. So we're beneficial in that we are a fast way to deliver content relative to your speed of your upload. We are a repository, and anyone with the LucidLink client anywhere in the world can gain access. One of the cool things about that is that we can immediately go and start working from LucidLink where the file is actually living. We do not have to pull it down. So perhaps we should show that in our Adobe Premiere.
So we now have our building a control room video from before, and if you're on YouTube, you can go and take a look at that. So I'm now, all of this is coming directly off of LucidLink. So as I pop in.
So the key thing to understand about the way LucidLink works is we bring down, instead of bringing down the entire file or the blocks that make up the file, we bring down the blocks where the playhead is. And then we have a prefetch that builds the blocks that are sequentially coming next. And we're providing those at your download speed of your internet. So when people ask, well, what's the bit rate am I compatible with? We ask, well, what are you editing with and what's your download bit rate? Plus, the other thing is how many of those, how many layers might you be playing at the same time? We have some ways to mitigate slow internet, and it has to do with it basically with the cache on the reverse. We talked about cache when we're doing writes, but on the reverse, we can keep those blocks local up to 10 terabytes. And we are able to play back files because they've been cached in your hard disk at hard disk speeds and not have to rely solely on your internet. So once you've played through the file once, or you've done one of the functions we call pinning, that will prefetch the blocks for any files in a particular folder or set of files that you request. Those blocks become local to your cache, and then they will play back at disk speed rather than your internet speed. You can change your cache settings by going into LucidLink and going into control panels, and then you can make that larger. If we wanted to, we could right-click on that MOV file that's right there in your high res. Just right-click, and towards the bottom is a function called pin, and that pinning function will start localizing the blocks. And what it's asking you, are you sure you want to take up out of that 20 gigs? Do you want 5.4 of it to be that one file? And you'll notice the little blue icon. It is downloading the blocks it takes to make that file. And one of the cool things is that file will perform at the speed of your hard drive now once that download of those blocks is completed. Now, if somebody were to make a color correction change or a change and affect the blocks that you've downloaded, those blocks would automatically be updated on your disk cache. So the file of truth is held in the cloud, and everyone else is accessing those blocks, not copying them down permanently, but copying them to your cache for faster access. So it's a very different thing than sync and share, which is what we're used to with Dropbox and other technologies like that.
So that raises the important concept of the source of truth in a distributed environment like this. Can you get a little bit more into detail about what that means to LucidLink and what that should mean to anybody who's working on this particular workflow?
Sure. The best way to explain it is to explain what we're not. What most cloud solutions are is it's a repository that becomes an area for content to be copied from or duplicated from and pushed out to the edges. And it doesn't matter if it's a relatively inexpensive concept of like Dropbox, or a much more expensive solution set where hardware is deployed specifically for that function. However, LucidLink writes blocks through your cache and into the object store. Our coordinated metadata service allows accessibility and keeps up with the status of each block. So we know if that block needs to be changed and wherever else it lives, because the metadata is coordinated across every file space client for that particular file space. And it's a huge differentiation because we do not need to bring down the entire file to start using it. So we can access very large files quickly. And we also don't duplicate the space. Now, we can't overcome internet speeds, and that's where the buffer or the cache helps us overcome limited bitrate download speeds. Now, something we haven't really talked about is LucidLink could also be used in conjunction with a cloud-hosted or a remote workstation. So that remote workstation may have better internet performance than I might have at home. So the cool thing about LucidLink is it's the same mount point on my home computer as it is my work computer, as it is my cloud computer. But I may and most likely will have different internet characteristics at each one of those locations.
Well, especially if you're talking cloud to cloud, you've got something running in Azure and you're running a workstation up there. That gives you access to a lot of power and a lot of greater connectivity than a lot of people have at home. A facility, it's going to be different because most facilities have dedicated 1 gig or above connections to the internet. But if you're working from anywhere and you're at home, that could be extremely interesting, controlling that system that's out there. And then you've got your LucidLink bucket attached to it so that everything ends up shared. You've got that single source of truth. And even if someone gets a hold of your cloud instance and gets into gets control of the Teradici, they're not going to be able to actually get your data anyway.
That's exactly right. And you're talking about our performance characteristics when we are there's a cloud hosted workstation with LucidLink hosted in the same region. We can get well over a gigabyte per second. And so we look like a local shared storage device when it's cloud to cloud. And we would perform that same way. And we know that everyone's internet performance with 5G and the other things that are coming, fiber to the home and those types of things, we feel like we're well positioned to service the media creation market for years to come. And it's a very exciting time to be involved with LucidLink, and we're proud to be a partner with KeyCode.
You folks you're definitely platform agnostic. It doesn't matter what operating system you're working with. You're also editorial agnostic, correct?
That's correct. So we are a viable solution for Avid, DaVinci Resolve, and many others. We've got customers using us as a Telestream Vantage workflow. Because LucidLink mounts like a local drive, it's shareable like a NAS, and has the cloud scale for storage and connectivity. It makes us compatible with most tools out of the box.
Very cool. And we're definitely excited to be partnering with you folks and getting our clients up to speed on even faster workflows that can enable them to work from anywhere.
Well, we're excited to be partnered with you, Jeff, and the whole KeyCode team, and look forward to what's next. And I can believe that we're going to have many more demos showing very specific workflow things over and above just editing in Adobe Premiere. So I'm excited.
All right, Richie, thanks for joining us. If you've got questions about LucidLink, please put them in the comments below. If you want to get a demo of LucidLink or get it into your workflow, reach out to us here at KeyCode Media. We can get you hooked up, and we look forward to bringing you into the next wave of technology. Thanks for joining us today, everybody.